Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbat is called Shabbat Nachamu. It's a Shabbat of comfort, and we call it that because this week we celebrated the holiday of Tisha B'Av, which brings a lot of sadness. And so we want to make sure on this Shabbat that we do as much as possible to bring ourselves and everyone around us much comfort. I hope that this beautiful setting by Ilana Arian will do that for you on this Shabbat. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle with this world. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, Yomar.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. That beautiful rendition of the words that begin chapter 40 of the book of Isaiah remind us of a time when the Israelites were in the most desperate of circumstances. In the aftermath of the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, the Israelites in ancient times were exiled to the capital of their enemies, the Babylonians, and in Babylon they were languishing in despair. And Isaiah comes to those people and says, Nachamu, Nachamu, oh God, comfort them, comfort us. And how do we find comfort? How do we, when we confront everything that's broken in our lives, everything that's broken around us, when we are so far separated from what we think we're supposed to have, from what life is supposed to be, where do we find comfort? And tradition teaches that we find that comfort in Shabbat, in taking a moment from the world that is to set everything aside and to use these precious hours of rest to imagine the world as it could be. And so we are reminded in this week's Torah portion that Shabbat is a complex thing, Because in chapter 20, the book of Exodus, when we learn the 10 commandments, we're taught, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho, remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. But here in the book of Deuteronomy, as Moses shares his last words with the Israelites before they are heading off into the promised land without him, Moses doesn't say Zachor, remember. He says Shamor, observe. Now, there are lots of times when memory offers tremendous comfort because memory harkens us back to a time perhaps that we remember with fondness, with happiness, with joy. I was thinking about how we each have these comfort items that we carry with us. I have in my room a stuffed bear called Rojard, which gives me some sense of comfort. I got it in my senior year of high school as a gift for completing my college applications. Rojard has traveled with me since I was 18 and still sort of hangs out in my room. I could tell you about the stuffed animals that Amy has with her from her childhood. I can tell you about my kids' special comfort items that they hold on to as they make their way through their teen years into their adulthood. We all have these things that give us comfort because they invite us to remember. They invite us to remember who it is that we used to be. But what Moses says is if you really want to be who you need to do more than remember. You need to act. You need to work with diligence and with determination and with fortitude to create the world that you seek to have. It's not enough to just remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You have to guard it. You have to guard that image of what the world is that you want it to be, and then be inspired through the rest of Shabbat to go out into the work week and to make that world a reality. In this last week, we lost a giant among Americans, the Representative John Lewis, who endeavored from the time that he was a teenager all the way until his very last days, not simply to remember all of the tragedies that befell him as he struggled for civil rights as a young man in the 1960s, walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, or enduring all of the insults on his person and on his soul in that fight for equality and civil rights, but that he acted, he guarded that dream and bequeathed that dream to us. And so as we perform both of those elements, as Lecha Dodi teaches us, b'dibur echad, shamur v'zachor b'dibur echad, that God said both words to remember and to guard in one utterance, so should we also hold on to our memories and to our determination. In this way, Isaiah was right. We have nachamu for remembrance. We have comfort for our deliverance that we will fashion for ourselves. Shabbat Shalom. We're so grateful today that we have Lauren and Alan Gross and Stella and Haley with us to help us welcome Shabbat in the kindling of the Shabbat candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light. So may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehavlik shel Shabbat. Amen.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kadsho b'ava uvratzon, chin hilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kitashta mikohamim v'shabbat kadshecha v'yava uvratzon kinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
Chaim. What I really want to know is how Haley is going to enjoy challah later tonight with no front teeth. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but she is a very talented young woman. I'm sure she's figured out how to eat with no teeth. And I'm sure, Haley, when we get to your bat mitzvah in a few years, you will have all the teeth that you need. Shabbat. So while they're here. And now I want us to a moment to gather together that idea in our minds. Take a moment and focus on our memories. It seems like some of us suffer from what I suffer from, which is PCML. PCML is pre-COVID memory loss, where it's hard to remember what it was like when we used to be able to go out and gather with friends and to be with people. But I want us for a moment to put that memory of maybe a perfect Shabbat that you remember in your mind, a memory when you were with the people that mattered most to you. And I want us to take that memory and fashion it into a dream that we can endeavor to hold fast to in these dark and difficult days, and to use that memory as a beacon and a vision of what it is that we seek to accomplish and to create in the course of our lives. And so as we welcome the Sabbath bride, we nurture that dream, we hold fast to that dream, and we welcome the peace and the glory of these Sabbath moments.
Shamor v'zachor
able, please rise and face the door to welcome the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, torchem u'neyam yisregula, boi chala, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, peni Shabbat, dekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, peni Shabbat, dekabela. Please remain standing. We continue with the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamevorach, Leolam va'ed, Leolam, 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 Leolam. Leolam va'ed,
You may be seated if you've been standing as we continue together with the words of Ma'ariv Aravim. We read together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshaneh itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil bein yom uvein laila, Adonai tzivaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam, Tamidim loch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. Avat olam beit Yisrael, Amcha avta, Torah u'mitzvot. we continue with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha Veshinantam levadecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lachtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ug'shartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beineinecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
The words of Micha Mocha remind us of one of our people's greatest triumphs, when with the help of Moses as our leader here on earth and God from heaven, we went forth from Egypt and celebrated our newfound freedom. What's amazing is that just after the Second Temple was destroyed in the year 70 of the Common Era, as the rabbis of the Talmud were putting together the worship service that we were going to pray every morning and every evening, despite the sadness of having their central piece and the central site of their worship been destroyed, the rabbis said that we ought to remind ourselves every evening and every morning of the redemption that came from the Exodus. This week, as we mark Tisha B'Av and remind ourselves once again of the variety of tragedies that have befallen our people, the destruction of the First Temple and the Second Temple, the Inquisition, and we also bring on the other sadnesses, including the Shoah in our history, we're on that one day on Tisha B'Av sitting in a very low and sad place. And yet, the evening comes, and the morning comes, and the next evening, and the next morning, and again, and again, and again, we remind ourselves of our people's great triumph of the Exodus with the words of Micha Mocha. We know that no matter how dark the evening gets, there will be a morning the next day. The sun rises, and we can pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and the great beauty is that we get to move forward together, singing songs of celebration and joy, like the words of Micha Mocha.
יפרע אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Lehamidinu shomeinu Lechayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Lehamidenu shomereinu lechayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom. Lehamidenu shomereinu
As Rabbi Levin mentioned at the opening of services tonight, we're reminded again in this week's Torah portion of the command Shamor, to observe the Shabbat, the same word that teaches us Vishamru, that we ought to observe the Sabbath. Each week we get this opportunity to take a deep breath, to reflect on the week that was, and especially during the time of this pandemic, for so many of us, we look forward even more so to these Friday evenings and Saturdays when we can have a little bit of normalcy, that a challah tastes the same as it does when we are out in public. We go home, we light the Shabbat candles, we spend time with our family. And we pray that the day of Shabbat will give us a sense of rest and comfort and peace. Those prayers are even more powerful and meaningful this evening as we look down into the Atlantic and Caribbean and know that something is coming our way. We're not exactly sure what it is. But with these words of Vishamru, we hope and pray that Shabbat will bring us an even deeper sense of peace. And so we sing the words now of Vishamru.
Veshamru bnei Yisrael et haShabbat, lasot et haShabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini ubein bnei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru hashvi.
Ubayom hashvi.
Shabbat vaynafash.
Shabbat vaynafash.
Good job.
Thanks.
Shabbat vaynafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et haShabbat lasot et haShabbat ledorotam berit olam.
That was fun. Now invite everyone, please take a moment, center yourself, allow yourself to drift your way into God's holy private chambers when you and the Holy One will have your time alone to create that sense of unity, that sense of oneness that is the sum total of our spiritual connection with all that matters. As we gather ourselves, we rise for tefillah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chastei Avot ve'Imahot, U'mevi Geula livnei v'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol, Atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim ve'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umito melach, melech memit umechayem, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanata lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yahlelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
The Hebrew word for peace, shalom, is related to the root shin lamed mem, shalem, which means complete. If we want to have peace, then we have to find a way to be complete. We have to find a way where we don't feel like we lack. But a lot of times when we consider our sense of brokenness or what it is that we're missing, we often think about that which we have not received. And in this week's Torah portion, we're taught that actually it goes the other way. Moses says to us, Shema Yisrael, listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one, and then says, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love Adonai your God, b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, u'v'chol me'odecha, and with all of your might. If you want to really love God, if you want to really do what it is that will bring you peace, it can't be halfway. Moses doesn't say love God with your heart, your soul, your being, Moses says you have to love God with all of your heart, with all your soul, with all that you are. When you give yourself completely and totally and fully to that which is the object of your greatest desire, you will find some measure of peace. And that peace isn't necessarily one that comes from having everything you need. That peace comes from knowing that you gave everything you had. And so as we take these moments for prayer and for peace, we renew our destiny and our vision of how we can love God with all that we are in every moment, in whatever fashion and way we can.
Avir harim salul kayai bereach uranim nisa beruach arba'im im kol pamonim uftar dimati lan va'even shvuya b'chaloma ha'ir asher badal yoshet ובליבה חומה ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני כינור ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני כינור אך בבואי היום לשיר לך ולך לקשור כתרים קטונתי מצעיר בנייך ומאחרון המשוררים כי שמך צורב את השפתיים כנשיקת שרף אם אשכחך ירושלים אשר כולה זהב ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני כינור ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני
Shabbat Shalom. I could say right now that I am north of Deerfield Beach and south of Boynton Beach. And some people would know where I was. And I could say I'm between Miami and West Palm Beach, and many more people would know where I was based on the cities I pick. The book of Deuteronomy, which started last week and continues this week, opens with a list of cities to identify where the children of Israel are situated in their wanderings. They're not any cities. They're cities where events happen. In the same way, the places I mentioned in our area are not just any places. Miami conjures up a different image than Boynton Beach. Places are potent. The place I'm talking about, of course, where we live is here, Boca Raton. For some of us, this is a second home. Others, a birthplace, a place where we've raised children, met friends, or will end our lives. But for two groups of Israeli soldiers, Boca Raton has become a place of therapy, growth, and of reflection. Two groups of soldiers have visited us over the last 2 winters. These visits took place before events that happened in the summer 6 and 14 years ago, this very time on the Jewish calendar. In a podcast this week, The Times of Israel has David Horowitz and Brett Stevens talk about reality television in America, why it's so popular here. They share statistics and marvel at what reality television means to Americans. This country is receptive to reality television to a degree that is far greater than those in Israel, and they are puzzled by it. And that's perhaps one of our big differences. Reality in Israel is very different. There is no need for reality TV to make life exciting or interesting or dangerous or complicated in a country where the population goes to war and fights on a regular basis. The last group that was here with Peace of Mind, this program that brings Israeli soldiers to our community, had fought in 2014's Operation Protective Edge. And in the group with Sor Golden, whose twin brother Hadar had been kidnapped and was killed 6 years ago tomorrow by Hamas. Jews around the world every Shabbat pray for the release of his remains to be returned to his family. And I add my prayers to all those tonight. And then the first group that came to us to fought in the 2006 Lebanon War. They lost friends, dear friends. As we saw in a show produced by Neil Rubin, one of the soldiers in that group, Roy Klein, Alex Schwartzman, Amichai Macharvia, Shimon Dahan, Asaf Namar, Shimon Edgar, Ohad Klausner, and Idan Cohen were all lost. And part of their time here in therapy was dealing with that loss so many years later. Nir wrote on this week that is also the anniversaries of their death, that he wished he knew how to overcome his sadness, to remember that they will never grow old and stay beautiful and young and powerful as they were in that war. We talk about them today, not just because of these horrific anniversaries that these soldiers who visit us in winters mark in summers, but because the book of Deuteronomy is a place for new stories and new words and new opinions. It is Moses's words that fill the book of Deuteronomy, in the same way that these soldiers' words have filled the stories that have come to be part of Boca Raton Synagogue and Temple Bethel, the two communities that collaborate to bring these Peace of Mind soldiers. They experience danger and difficulty. And these anniversaries, in some ways, do not give any comfort at all. But here's what does give comfort. What does give the Nachamu that is prayed for in this week's marking of the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av? That the anniversaries let us reflect on lives lost and tell stories. Reflecting on tragedy is important, and it is why these soldiers who know these anniversaries means something to us and are happy that the stories of those they have lost mean more than just to their friends and family who are in Israel. Those places that are listed at the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy are bad places. They're places of idolatry. They draw remembrances of the golden calf and misery and death and plagues. But in doing that, in Moses taking over the words of Deuteronomy and reminding us of the difficult, he gently reminds the people in his own way, in his own words, that will be up to them to repeat these events. He does it not as only a reprimand, but a reminder that living through the difficulties they live through can get them through a future without him, as he will die at the end of the book of Deuteronomy. Talking about those who are soldiers who have lost, who have visited us over the last 2 winters, lets them use Moses's own style to remember the difficult and to punctuate the remembrance with a reminder of two things that are found in this portion. One, with the 10 commandments, we are reminded that we are part of something greater and bigger than ourselves. In the same way, the soldiers are reminded in their duty to battle that they are part of a nation bigger than themselves. And the second thing that is given in this Torah portion is the Shema, the declaredness of one God. It will be that God that will give space for Moses in this book of Deuteronomy to give his story, to share his stories. Deuteronomy is a reminder that we are not insignificant, that Moses becomes the mouthpiece to speak the reminder of the difficult that lies in his time and his people. And the soldiers are a mouthpiece to remind us of the difficult of their time and their people. And we, for them, become a living Nachamu here in Boca Raton in the most beautiful of ways. Shabbat Shalom. It is that sentiment of Nachamu, of comfort, that we hope to give to those people who at this time are praying for those who are in need of healing. We'll share the names that we have on our list here, and then if you have names you would like to add into your heart at home, please feel free to do so. Mishaberach Avotenu v'imotenu, may the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those in need of healing. On this night, we ask for healing for Rabbi Stephen David Abram, Samuel Agranol, Perry Bear, Fred Belkin, Margie Berman Block, Bert Bongard, Kathleen Bower-Sox, Mark Bregman, Joan Brown, Alex Bruner, Michael Kamel, Joanne Chase, Claire Cohen, Mark Cohen, Roy Cohen, Lynn Edinger, Arnold Ernay, Estelle Ernay, Dale Frost, Bob Gillis, Myrna Goldman, Jake Goldstein, Stephen Gordon, Keith Homer, Ruth Jacobson, Jocelyn Shoshana Bat Mazel, Jeff Kaplan, Norman Kaufman, Florence Koish, Nathaniel Koish, Joni Kramer, Elaine Krasik, Betsy Kupsch, Mickey Cutler, Murray Lefkowitz, Norman Levine, Barbara Liss, Ed Levy, Paul Mandel, Orlando Marrero, Charles Meacham, Susan Myers, Shirley Ann Myers, Victoria Nelson, Jerry Pinsky, Michael Pinsky, Susan Pinsky, Jerry Podolsky, Chris Ray, Ellen Romberg, Eileen Rosenbaum, Alan Rosenfeld, Sharon Rubin, Bonnie Schaefer, Ellen Shapiro, Rose Schnorr, Lydia Jane Scoresby, Len Sirowitz, Mickey Sirowitz, Irene Stempler, Chuck Thrall, Richard Tremblay, Phyllis Wasserberg, Israel Yamuter, Joel Ziegler, and those names that you add at home at this time. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim, may God bless all those in need of healing.
please rise if you're able as we continue with Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
At this time in our service, our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts as our own. Zichronam levracha, may their memories be for blessing. If you are observing the yahrzeit, the anniversary of a death, or in the period of Shloshim have had a death in recent days, we invite you to rise when the name of your loved one is read. On the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of their death, we remember Mendel Altner, Ruth Anna Pohl, William Barbarosh, Leo J. Berg, Dr. Murray Blanchard, William Burns, Linda Halpern Klaus, Iris Adrian Cohen, Isabel B. Deckelbaum, Theodore Dichter, Benny Drassenauer, Bertha Drassenauer, Dr. Philip Feinberg, Muriel Fisher, Samuel M. Frankel, Sadie Friedman, Henry Freeman, Miriam Mimi Geller, Oscar Guys, Molly Goldsmith, Mark Richard Height, Morris Heyer, Hyman Holinsky, George Jablow, David Jarnes, Marvin Coulter, Samuel Camel, Anna Canfer, Jay Kimmelman, Philip L. Kravitz, Sam Ladin, Geraldine Jerry LeBeau, Hilda Levine, Rasha Levinson, Charles Lieberman, Sarah Ludwig, Marsha McKenzie, Lester Markle, Julia Pimstein Markman, Victor Markowitz, Paula Meyercheck, Saul Mazel, Fannie Faye Meyerowitz, Hortense Fox Miller, Jack Molaski, Harry Lee Osias, Arnold Passaroff, Selma Polikoff, Abram Sachar, Edith Salatin, Leonard Satin, Joseph Samuel Satin, Ann Schneidel, Gertrude Sherman, Bernard Schumann, Laurie Simpson, Cynthia Syrup, Harold Sussman, Adele Rosenberg Tati, Bernardo Vainberg, Eleanor Weinstock, Pedro Weistaub, Seymour Tim Wolf, Adele Zimmerman. And in the period of Shloshim, those who've been laid to rest in recent days, Arthur Averbrook, David Gray, Blanche Rader, Joan Ehrlich, Ann Gold, Alvin Wheeler, Beatrice Vogel, Cynthia Donnelly, Lee Fenster, Donner Baran, Rosalind Mazursky, Victor Silverstein, Deborah Silver, and those names that you add at home. We rise if you are able and continue with the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, v'alma devorach yurtei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei alamaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudasha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. The source of peace, and peace to all who mourn, and comfort the bereaved among us. And let us say, amen. We will conclude with Osei Shalom, which we'll be blessed to hear this evening.
Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
And we share some announcements. We make time to do all the work we need to do to prepare for the holidays, are featuring Mishpacha Month, a month full of showing some of the greatest hits, some of the greatest classes and lessons and learnings and shows and things that we've done since COVID has hit us. So you should see your TBE Boca virtual Bethel for all that. There's also Hebrew reading workshop with cantorial associate Kira Malamed Vainberg. And I'm thrilled at the beginning of August, we will have with Sisterhood an evening with Susan Weidman Schneider, who is the founder and editor of Lilith magazine. If you're not familiar with it, it is a groundbreaking, decades-old publication that has been a trailblazer for women in the world and Jewish women in particular. There's also Jewish meditation with Rabbi Amy Pesa on April 5th as well, and lots of other great reruns happening this month for Mishpacha time. And so we're going to join with Cantor Michelle in Motzi, the blessing over bread, and wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.